everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Winning Wednesday. I am your host, Attorney Elsa W. Smith. I'm also the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, where our mission is to empower women through estate planning. The goal of this show is to provide you tips and helpful information to position you to win. Today's episode is on parental tips and how to protect your college students. So this episode really is as I'm speaking to parents, guardians. So please take notes. And remember that this episode will be available on replay on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, of course. So let's get right into it. Estate planning doesn't always focus on property and what might happen to minor children if their parents were to die or pass away. Before your child turns 18, you parents are used to making all the healthcare decisions for your child. And while you may seek that child's input, healthcare decisions are typically made by the child's parents. But the reality of at least adulthood in the United States is that once a child reaches what's called the age of majority, and in many states that's 18, their parents are no longer entitled to access their child's medical records or healthcare records. And it's likely that medical professionals or other care providers can refuse or will refuse to even consult with the parents. So the typical college-bound student, and we're in that season where in some campuses they're about to start the fall semester if they haven't started already. You're thinking of essential items as parents, right? The mini fridge, laptop, computer, cell phone, clothes, shower shoes. You're thinking Bed Bath and Beyond, Best Buy, or maybe even Target, but you're not thinking of estate planning, right? And an estate plan is probably the most essential item that will protect your college student and provide you with peace of mind. So here's the problem. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and yes, we're in and out, and I'm not sure where we are in this week, but there's something in the air, and some people are wearing masks, and even I wear masks in certain situations. So we're still in it. The question is to what degree. But many parents have expressed concerns about how best to ensure that they can speak to doctors or other medical professionals if their child needs medical care, either whether it be due to COVID related illness, or if heaven forbid they're in an accident that leaves them incapacitated. So but without your adult child giving you legal authority through estate planning, you're going to be unable to help them to coordinate testing, access medical records, and provide the needed input to medical staff. And without the documents that I'm going to be discussing here, you may need a probate court to get involved, which can be costly and time consuming, especially for students who are attending school out of state or even out of the country, and it leaves a court rather than your adult child with the authority to appoint someone who may not be appropriate to make the necessary decisions. All right. So what's the solution? I've identified the problem. Now, what's the solution? Now, I'm going to be discussing several estate planning tools, and I'm going to be referring to them from a state of Maryland perspective. Okay. And again, as a reminder, this isn't legal advice. It's all educational content. And please seek the assistance of a licensed estate planning attorney in your jurisdiction. We are certainly available in the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia. But let's get started. The first tool that parents can use is referred to as a HIPAA authorization, or it's also called a release, or a HIPAA waiver and release. What does HIPAA mean? It's an acronym for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It's a federal law, and it's designed to protect a patient's privacy. So, a HIPAA release allows physicians to share information and medical records with those that you, or in this case, since we're talking about protecting your child, who your adult child wishes to have their information. So this document will often be what's needed for you to get the information required from that healthcare institution treating your child. In a HIPAA authorization, a young adult can stipulate that they don't want to disclose certain information about sex, drug use, mental health, or other details that they prefer to keep quiet. In other words, they can tailor it, right? So that's one tool. The next one is a financial power of attorney. Now, a financial power of attorney allows an individual, and that person is known as a principal, to assign another person known as an agent the authority to manage their legal and financial affairs if they are unable to do so. And a power of attorney agent maintains the principal's power to act, and that document can define the limits, if any, of the power given to the agent. Now, for college students, a power of attorney can be beneficial if they would like parents or guardians to assist them, with banking, maybe taking out loans, entering into a contract, or any other legal or financial matter while they are away at college, or even studying abroad for a semester. The next item, or next tool, is known as an advance directive, particularly in the state of Maryland. It's known, some areas also refer to it as a medical power of attorney, but in Maryland, we have what's called an advance directive. And like the financial power of attorney, this document allows your adult child to handle their medical decisions via you or their agent, right? If your child is unable to do so, and if they choose you as their agent. Remember, this is their document, so they have to be the ones to select what individuals they want to serve as their agents. The Maryland Advance Directive is divided into two parts generally. The first part is where your college student names their healthcare agent, who they want to speak on their behalf. And they need to name an agent. And then having a secondary or a backup agent is recommended, but it's not required, right? And the agent for your child is going to have the power to consent or not to medical procedures and treatments with which the doctors are recommending, and including things that are going to keep your child alive, like ventilators and feeding tubes, right? The agent for your child also has the power to decide the child's doctor, and other healthcare providers. Who are they going to be? Where is the child going to be treated? Including, whether it should be in a hospital or other medical care facility. The agent in this advance directive also has the right to ride with the adult child in an ambulance if they need to be rushed to a hospital. And they also have the right to visit this adult child if they're in a hospital or other medical facility. Now, in the state of Maryland, you need two witnesses to witness the adult child's signing of this document. Pretty much any adult can be a witness. If you name a healthcare agent, though, that person may not be a witness. Also, one of the witnesses must be, or the witnesses should not be individuals who stand to benefit from the adult child's death or benefit from that adult child's estate. Okay, so that's what the law calls disinterested witnesses. And also, you do not need to have the form notarized. At least in the state of Maryland, you do not need to have that form notarized. Now, part two, we're still under the advanced directive. We're still talking about that. Part two is known as a living will. This is where the college student, the adult child, gets to identify what their treatment preferences are, right? It lets the adult child decide what life-sustaining procedures he or she wants in three very distinct situations. When there is a terminal condition imminent, despite the use of life-sustaining procedures. Number two, if there is a condition of permanent unconsciousness known as a persistent vegetative state. And then the third scenario is known as an end-stage condition, which is an advanced, progressive, and incurable condition resulting in complete physical dependency, right? Pretty serious. Now, to that point, these issues are heavy even for seasoned adults, right? I know some are my clients, but as parents, you have a great opportunity here to communicate some of the more serious aspect of what being an adult means. And who knows, maybe having having your college student complete these forms may impact the decisions that they make, the people that they choose to interact with, and other college life decisions that they make, right? So one other note, your adult child should have an electronic copy and or a hard copy of the advanced directive available to share with their on-campus healthcare facility if that is appropriate. But regardless, they should have a copy of that advanced directive readily available. As well as you parents should have one if your child designates you as their agent. The next document I want to talk about is a will. Now, at first glance, it may seem a little silly for some to say, well, why does a college kid, need a will? They barely have any assets. But consider this. The average American has over 20 online accounts. Does your adult child, have thoughts about who should manage and close down those social media accounts? Those are what are called digital assets, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Who's going to monitor their emails? This is a great time in the young adult's life to really instill responsibility and encourage them to think about things earlier on in life. College students who have assets in their own names should consider a will and possibly a revocable trust if that's appropriate to avoid their state's intestacy laws. And again, as a reminder, and the word intestate means dying without a will. Okay. So if a person dies without a will, then the laws of their state govern how their assets are distributed. So by creating a will, a young adult can direct the distribution of their personal assets like cars and jewelry, for example, collections, to the beneficiaries that they choose. And in addition, appointing a personal representative, some states call it an executor, but a personal representative in a will, the individuals or entities that are best suited to handle the responsibilities associated with administering that estate can be identified. Even if you don't have, a lot of money, significant wealth, a young adult may feel that the default choices provided by state law don't fulfill or don't accomplish their intent, his or her intent, right? So why just throw up your hands and leave it to the state? Be proactive and create a will. A will is going to change over time, as it should. As your life circumstances change, so does your will. But having one as a young adult really creates a good foundation for that child's life going forward. Now, I want to at least give a brief comment about social media and digital assets. Your digital property might include meaning you young adult, your young adult child. It might include a number of different types of assets, like say a digital music library, a photo saved on an internet platform, credit card loyalty points, and even emails. Now, unfortunately, family members may fight over any type of asset, including the digital ones. And they might also not know how to access these materials. And that can generate major problems in trying the whole process of trying to get to those assets. And here's an interesting fact. According to a Pew Research Center study, about a quarter of adults say that they're almost constantly online. You all didn't see that, but yeah. Anyway, the study went further to show that approximately 77% of Americans go online daily. I know that you are part of that 77%. And several larger companies that people use, or if they have a subscription service to a company, they've made it difficult for a third party to gain access to those accounts after the primary user has passed away, after they've died. So if your college student, returning back to what we're talking about today, if your college student doesn't have a running record somewhere where they have a list of their digital assets, they need to set aside time sometime soon to do that. So at a minimum, they should be keeping a record of their online accounts. What am I talking about? Where are you viewing me right now? Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then other accounts like Twitter, Amazon, Netflix, iTunes, Spotify, etc., right? Email accounts associated with any of these services. What are their usernames? What are their passwords? Are there password prompts, like secret questions? Now, if the particular digital service allows for what's called a legacy contact, like in case the worst happens, your college student should ensure that that information is updated. And if they want you to be that legacy contact, it needs to reflect that, right? And each platform is going to have their own requirements. I don't have time to go into what every platform requires in this episode, but suffice it to say that they each have their own requirements, and it would be beneficial for your young adult to review them. Parents, chances are you have social media accounts too, so this is a good opportunity for you to check and make sure that your legacy, contacts are up to date. Facebook, I just wanted to mention Facebook, for example, has, if a user passes away, if they die, Facebook will memorialize the account, And if a family member or close friend, that's if they let Facebook know, right, that the person has died. In that case, Facebook is not going to provide the login information, from what I understand, but it will add a remembering badge on the profile. So the content stays visible, but the profile won't appear in public places, and it won't or shouldn't come up as one of those, persons you may know on Facebook in your stream. Now, nobody can log into a memorialized account, but if your young adult child has chosen that legacy contact I referred to before they die, the account can be changed. A legacy contact can also accept friend requests, can pin a tribute, a post, and can also change the profile picture if that's desired. My point in bringing all of this up and in referring to the Facebook example is that just to raise your awareness of this and discuss it with your college student, right, before they head off to college. Now, college is a great time. It's a time of like great change for both the parents and your young adults. Young adults are dealing with being on their own, possibly for the first time. And parents may be dealing with the empty nest syndrome, right? Because, we're so intimately involved with raising our kids, it's tempting to see them as just that, little chickadees, little children. But in the eyes of the law, the apron strings get cut the minute that they turn 18, like it or not. Once they cross that threshold into adulthood, they're no longer under your agency, legally speaking. That applies to matters that are big and small, particularly issues related to emergency health care. And that's what we've talked about somewhat today. So that's why having an open understanding with your adult child is so important. This is a perfect opportunity to begin teaching college age children about your family values from many different perspectives. Being responsible, taking care of your affairs, your legal affairs. It's likely that this will be the first time that your college student will, open a checking account, maybe apply for a credit card, and take responsibility for, the payment of tuition and maybe even housing bills, right? As part of that introduction to real life, it's a great time to discuss and ask that that adult child to execute an advance directive, a power of attorney, HIPAA waivers, and even a will and other appropriate estate planning documents. So I hope that this episode has, at a minimum, heightened your awareness as to the discussions that you need to be having with your college-bound adult child. But it also, hopefully, it sparked some questions about your own estate planning. And that's what we hope to do. We hope to educate, inform, and ultimately empower, right? So I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I'm your host, Attorney Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney, empowering women through estate planning. Be sure to catch the replay on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I will see you in my next episode. Be well, everybody. Take care.